This is part 3 of the review of basic tonal harmony, and this is going to be dealing with secondary dominants. While it's understandable to think of tonal harmony as all coming out of the notes of a single scale, for a lot of different kinds of music, it's actually pretty rare to stick to just the diatonic chords. We've already seen that in the minor, we need to alter the notes to make a satisfying dominant function chord to resolve to the tonic. Let's take that a step further. If we can introduce a dominant or dominant seventh chord from outside the key in order to make the tonic in minor sound more effective, maybe we could do it other places too. Let's say we're in C major and we want to go to an E minor chord, that is the 3 chord. But we feel like it's a little bland the way it is. We could try the same trick and simply insert the dominant chord of the 3 minor, which is B major or a B dominant 7th chord, and try that. Sounds pretty good, right? Now we haven't left C major. We have just treated the 3 chord as if it was a 1 chord for a moment, and then borrowed the 5 chord from the key of E minor to give it a stronger resolution. This is called tonicizing. You tonicize a chord by using a secondary dominant, also sometimes called an applied dominant, to make it feel like a tonic just for a moment. To write the appropriate Roman numerals then, we would say it's a 1 chord going to a 5, 7 of 3, going to 3. This makes it clear what that B7 chord is doing in C major. From a functional standpoint, it is here to emphasize the arrival of the E minor by treating it as a tonic for a moment while still remaining in the key of C major. Well, if that worked for E minor, let's try it in another chord in C major. Let's do the 5 chord. That's G major. So we need to ask ourselves, if we were in G major, what would the 5 chord be? Well, it would be D major, or better yet, D dominant 7th. And by the way, just to be clear, when I say D dominant 7th, what I'm talking about is a major triad with a minor 7th, which occurs on the 5th scale degree of a major scale. This is sometimes called a major minor 7th, but it's much easier and more common to say a 5-7 or a dominant 7 for several reasons. Firstly, only the 5 chord generates this major minor 7th chord, and they are always dominant function chords. And because they happen so often, it's a little less cumbersome than saying major minor 7th every time. So what we have here is a progression from C to D7 or D dominant 7 to G, which would be 1, 5, 7 of 5 to 5. Well, the next obvious question is, can we do the same tonicizing trick with any chord? And the answer is yes. Any chord within the key or even outside of the key can be treated like a momentary tonic and given its own dominant 5 chord, with one exception: diminished triads. Since only major or minor chords can be the tonic of a key, only they can be tonicized. Diminished triads are inherently unstable since they don't have a perfect fifth. They have a diminished fifth. So there's no way to treat them as if they're a tonic. Or put another way, you can't resolve to a dominant function chord because they're unstable. If we tried and went C 5, 7 of B, which is F sharp 7, to B diminished, well, it just doesn't work so well. So, in any major key, you can tonicize the 2, the 3, the 4, the 5, and the 6 chords with a secondary dominant drawn from the key of that chord. Here's what it would look like in C major. Well, what about chords outside the key? What if you wanted to go from C major to an A flat major chord, which would be the major flat 6 chord? Well, the same principle applies. Just ask yourself, what is the 5 or 5/7 chord in A flat major, which is E flat 7? Then just put that in front of the A flat, and the force of the dominant resolution will make what is otherwise a pretty unexpected chord seem more believable. How about something really strange? How about C major to F sharp minor? So we'd go C, C sharp 7 to F sharp minor. Sort of odd, but still basically okay. So the secondary dominant move is kind of a formula for preparing and intensifying the arrival of any major or minor chord, no matter what key you're in. And this applies to other dominant function chords in a key as well. So there's one other dominant function chord, the 7 chord. Since the 7 chord is also the top 3 notes of a 5/7 chord, the two sounds are so closely related they're almost the same thing. Here's a short example from Bach. And here we can see Bach make extensive use of secondary dominants in a very short space. He moves from the 1 to a 5/7 of 4 in measure 1. This is a very common move since the 1 chord becomes the 5/7 of 4 just by making it a dominant 7th chord. That is, by adding the B flat to the C major, it turns into the 5 of F major. And then once it resolves to the F major, it then immediately turns into a 5 of flat 7. That's B flat. F is the 5 of B flat. And then it resolves to the B flat at the fermata. Remember, secondary dominants can go to chords outside the key as well as to diatonic ones. Then we see an example of the 7 of another chord. We see a 7 of 5 to 5/7, which then resolves itself into 1. Bach then uses the 5/7 of 5 in measure 5 and another 5/7 of 4 in measure 6. As I said, in passages like this, secondary dominants are just as likely, if not more so, to appear than ordinary diatonic chords. In a way, then, it makes more sense to just consider secondary dominants, at least those which resolve to chords within the key, as being kind of part of the extended family of basic diatonic chords, and just assume that they will be part of almost any tonal music that you look at.